Welcome to the Harris County Flood Control District's virtual community engagement meeting to discuss the major maintenance of Cypress Creek and its tributaries project. This virtual community meeting is being offered by the Flood Control District to share vital information with the community. My name is Imelda Vera with the Flood Control District Communications team, and I am joined tonight by a team of Flood Control District leadership and subject matter experts to ensure we continue to keep you up to date on this important flood mitigation projects in your community. We are also joined by staff from area elected officials, offices, and community associations. We are glad to see all the community so engaged in these projects, and we look forward to continuing to share updates and keeping you all in the community involved. This virtual public meeting will begin with a presentation to share project updates, including the progress of the ongoing work, the types of maintenance being conducted, and next steps. The presentation will be followed by a virtual question and answer session with Flood Control District team members. Attendees will be able to submit comments and questions through the website or by phone. Any comments not addressed during the Q&A session will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the event. Instructions on how to participate in the virtual open house are included on the slide, on this virtual meeting webpage, and on the Flood Control District website. I will also share a reminder of these instructions when we reach the Q&A portion of the meeting. First, we would like to begin tonight's meeting with some remarks from Harris County Precinct 3 Commissioner Tom Ramsey.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you also to Harris County Flood Control District for hosting this. As you all know, we are in the middle of hurricane season and flooding concerns are at the top of everybody's mind during a rain event, big or small. We at the county are doing all that we can to prepare for this and other events. At the precinct level, our crews are working hard at maintaining roadside ditches within our neighborhoods. We also have a huge project underway at John Paul Landings Park. We are digging a detention basin to address 230 acre-feet of storage, which helps with the Cypress Creek overflow. We're also working with the Harris County Flood Control District to find creative solutions for the entire watershed. You should know there are other options outside the county to find flood relief within Cypress Creek. And believe it or not, the I-45 expansion project is impacted by Cypress. TxDOT has allocated $7.5 billion for this overall project, which has been 15 years in the making. Of this amount, $2.5 billion is drainage related. It's currently in danger of being stalled or canceled completely, despite the fact that Harris County's population has nearly doubled over the last 30 years. We're not improved, and the corridor has been improved in over 30 years. In terms of drainage, the I-45 expansion project includes addressing the confluence of Buffalo and White Oak, of which Cypress influences both. TxDOT is currently seeking your input on this project and whether or not it should proceed or not. You can go online. The deadline to provide your feedback is Monday, August the 9th. If this project is canceled, the $7.5 billion will be invested elsewhere in the state. And I can't imagine losing $2.5 billion worth of drainage improvements in Harris County. For more information or to provide your feedback, visit TxDOT.gov and search for the North Houston Highway Improvement Project. You can also provide your feedback by phone at 1-800-687-8108. Now, I realize this is slightly off topic from what you originally hoped on the listen to, but important is that you hear the benefits of the I-45 expansion. Despite what some of my other colleagues on the court may say, this is an important project. And speaking of my other colleagues, I know Commissioner Cagle, who, by the way, also supports the expansion, has a few remarks, so I won't take any more of your time. Thank you again for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. We would now like to introduce Harris County Precinct 4 Commissioner Jack Cagle to share some additional remarks.
Good evening. I'm Jack Cagle, and I have the privilege of serving you as the Commissioner for Harris County Precinct 4. I want to thank our hardworking and skilled teams at Harris County Flood Control District for their tireless efforts to try to make sure that all of us as citizens are protected from the threats of your flooding. I also want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to participate in this meeting. Your input and involvement will ensure that our community remains strong and healthy. Thank you again for participating. The matters discussed this evening focus on Cypress Creek and its tributaries. These improvements will help preserve our way of life and continue to make this community a wonderful place to work, to play, and to raise our families. Again, your engagement is important to all of us in Harris County Precinct 4 and important to the Harris County Flood Control District and is a crucial part of a successful operation. Thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoy this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Cagle. We appreciate you both for joining us tonight to kick off the meeting. We will now transition to Marcus Duckett, Director of the Engineering Division with the Flood Control District, who will share information about the Flood Control District and this project. Marcus, over to you.
Thank you, Imelda, and a special thank you to each of you for joining us tonight. In this presentation, we'll give you a brief overview of this project. But before we get into the project specifics, we want to share a little bit of information about the Flood Control District. The Harris County Flood Control District is a special purpose district created by Texas legislature in 1937 and responds to devastating floods that hit the Houston area in 1929 and 1935. The Flood Control District is governed by the Harris County Commissioners Courts and works closely with other entities. The Flood Control District was created to serve as a local partner to leverage federal funding for flood damage reduction projects. While the Flood Control District is a separate entity from Harris County, we are part of the Harris County system and governed by the Commissioners Court. The mission of the Harris County Flood Control District is to provide flood damage reduction projects that work with appropriate regard for community and natural values. One of the most difficult challenges we face is constructing effective projects that are sensitive to community and natural values in highly urbanized areas. Harris County includes 22 main watersheds totaling approximately 1,800 square miles and more than 2,500 linear miles of channel. 2,500 miles is approximately the distance from New York to California. A watershed is a geographical region of land that drains to a common channel or outlet. Each watershed has its own unique characteristics and needs. The project we are presenting tonight is in the Cypress Creek watershed located in North Harris County. Our area is flood prone, and here are some reasons why. We're prone to extreme rainfall events, including tropical storms and hurricanes. We have flat, slow draining land and topography. We also have clay soils that do not soak up excess rainfall quickly. While the Flood Control District plays a critical role in flooding reduction, we are one of several entities involved in these efforts in our region. When rain falls on your roof, it flows through several jurisdictions, such as streets and drainage managed by Harris County Engineering Department and municipal utility districts or cities, such as the City of Houston, before it enters into a larger channel, creek, or a bayou. And that's where Flood Control District owns and maintains. This slide illustrates the various jurisdictions which sometimes even we share with other entities. Inside neighborhoods, as shown on the left side of this illustration, storm sewers and roadside ditches collect stormwater runoff and start the process of moving it away from streets and homes. Storm sewers and roadside ditches are the responsibility of the underlying municipality. The larger bayous and channels that take the collected stormwater and move it through our drainage system to Galveston Bay are the responsibility of the Flood Control District. This is shown on the right side of the illustration. In the middle is a stormwater detention basin, sometimes constructed by the Flood Control District. When storm sewers are increased, this creates an increase in runoff. Since it is our policy to avoid impacts to downstream properties, detention basins help to safely take in and store the temporarily store the excess rainfall during heavy rainfall events. Often we partner with Harris County precincts, utility districts, and others to add recreational amenities such as trails to these basins and along our channels. On August 25th, 2018, Harris County voters approved $2.5 billion for flood risk reduction projects. This vote followed a series of meetings across Harris County in each watershed, which resulted in a list of what is now 181 bond projects. 162 of those 181 projects have been initiated so far, including the 12 projects in the Cypress Creek Watershed. A total of more than $1.35 billion in partnership funding has been secured so far to stretch the 2018 bond program even farther. The actual timing of each individual project will depend on a variety of factors, including environmental permitting, right-of-way acquisition, and utility relocations in some cases. Also, requirements of a particular grant. That said, project lists and projected schedules are updated regularly on our website. While the bond was for $2.5 billion, the full cost of every project in the table is almost $5 billion. So we made it clear from the outset that we would need funding partners to fully construct the projects in the bond program. As I mentioned, we've successfully secured more than $1.2 billion in partner funding. And this graphic illustrates the many sources of those partnerships, including federal, state, and local funding for flood control district projects we're working to secure for Harris County. Each agency has its own definition of eligible projects and its requirements for local match funding. So the flood control district works diligently to match projects to the right partnership opportunities. We will now move into the part of the program that is specifically about the Cypress Creek watershed and major maintenance of Cypress Creek and its tributaries. There are 159 miles of open waterways that drain the Cypress Creek watershed. The map on the right shows all of the tributaries that flow into Cypress Creek. Cypress Creek is shown in the bold blue line. The project we're talking about tonight will restore conveyance on the tributaries and main stem of Cypress Creek through channel repair, erosion repair, desilting, and other methods. The Flood Control District completed field assessments of the channels in the Cypress Creek watershed to determine the state of those channels and the scope of work needed on each. In order to maximize the number of crews and work being done, we broke the scope of work into batches. Batches include channel projects that are grouped together by geography or other factors. For this project, we're planning to have between 6 and 8 batches with a total budget of $60 million. This program includes channels within Cypress Creek watershed for which the Flood Control District has property rights. Channels that are included are newly built or have previously been altered from their natural states. Natural channels are not included except for on the main stem of Cypress Creek. For the first 3 batches, there will be nearly 20 miles of channel modifications in the Cypress Creek watershed. As I previously mentioned, there will be up to 8 batches of channel improvements over the course of this project. So why are channel repairs needed? Repairing and restoring channels back to their original design allows the channel to convey or move stormwater runoff from the watershed. It enhances positive drainage and restores the channel capacity. Finally, it increases adequate access for the Flood Control District maintenance crews to mow or do repairs if needed in the future. This is not a dredging or widening project. We are simply restoring the channels to their original design. There are many types of maintenance that will occur over the life of this project, including desiltation, which removes accumulated sediment from the channel. Outfall pipe replacement, which replaces pipes that carry stormwater from neighborhood, ditch, and storm sewer systems to flood control channels. Repair of slope erosion caused by fast moving water. Reestablish of maintenance berms by clearing vegetation. Repair of damaged concrete lining where needed, and removal of encroachments from the flood control district right of way. Each of these play an important role in our efforts, and we will now discuss a few of these in depth. What is desilting? Desilting is the removal of sediment within a channel that has been deposited throughout multiple rain events. Deposition naturally occurs when fast-moving water slows and sediment settles in the channel. The graphic on the right shows a visual of desiltation. This program will remove the accumulated sediment and allow the channel to efficiently move stormwater as originally designed. Next is erosion repair. Erosion occurs when stormwater removes portions of the channel slope, creating a hole or a shear drop. Severe erosion can potentially damage other nearby public infrastructure, such as utility lines and roads. The flood control district uses various types of rocks and soil material to repair and protect the slopes from future erosion. Rock material is buried and eventually planted with grass. It is cost-effective and environmentally friendly. In the first 3 batches alone, we will use over 160,000 tons of rock and soil for erosion repair. Finally, encroachment removal. Encroachments are permanent or portable structures or objects that have been placed in the flood control district right-of-way, including things like fences, swing sets, sheds, swimming pools, bird baths, and other outdoor furnishings. Encroachments on flood control district property can obstruct drainage channels from carrying stormwater efficiently, block maintenance equipment from performing necessary repairs, increase the overall cost of maintenance of existing infrastructure, prevent rescue workers and first responders from reaching people during particularly hazardous weather events. If you receive an encroachment removal notification from the flood control district, the flood control district's encroachment removal office is available to assist the property owner through the entire process. To learn more about encroachments or the encroachment removal program, submit your questions and comments and visit www.hcfcd.org/encroachments. We know that trees are important to residents of the Cypress Creek watershed, and we've worked extensively with our urban forestry team on tree protection, root pruning, and vegetation removal. We have identified and are protecting many large and mature trees along many of the channels. We would do extensive vegetation removal to reestablish the maintenance berms, which was one of the types of maintenance I mentioned earlier. We will now look at the 3 planned batches. These batches include desilting and channel repairs. Batch 1 kicked off construction in early June. Work is occurring over approximately 8 miles on 7 different channels, primarily south of Spring Cypress Drive, east of Champions Forest Drive, and north of Cypresswood Drive, and west of TC Jester Boulevard. The construction for this batch is $14 million, and the estimated completion date is fall 2023. These are pictures of the ongoing progress of batch 1. This construction is on channel K1310300 in the Spring Creek Oaks neighborhood, upstream of TC Jester Boulevard. Batch 2 includes approximately 5.6 miles across 9 different channels. The cost for this batch is $3.3 million. The estimated start date is later this summer, with construction concluding at the end of 2023. Batch 3 includes approximately 5.8 miles on at least 11 different channels. The cost for this batch is $10.8 million. We're planning to go out for bids on this later this summer, so construction will begin this fall and conclude in late 2023. Please note that we will be adding additional channels before going out for bids, so please check the web pages for updates. Here is a full breakdown for the 3 batches, starting with the number of channels and channel length. The total figure for rock placed includes granular fill, or smaller pieces of soil, and riprap, which is larger rocks that are used to fill in and protect against future erosion. Finally, the last column shows the total length of storm sewer outfalls that will be replaced. Now let's take a look at the next steps. As I mentioned, batch 1 began construction in early June. Batches 2 and 3 both will start later this summer and fall, respectively. We're currently determining the channels to include in future batches. We plan to hold additional community engagement meetings for this project annually due to the extensive geographic size and timeline of the project. I will now turn it back over to Imelda to kick off the Q&A.
Thank you, Marcus. Before we move into the Q&A, I want to share a quick reminder that we love to hear from you on this and other projects moving forward across Harris County. To learn more about this project, ask questions, and sign up for our mailing list, please visit hcfcd.org/CI-012. As a reminder, there are 3 ways to submit a comment about this project during tonight's session. You can submit a comment on this side in the box near the presentation live stream. You can submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at hcfcd.org/CI-012. Or submit a comment via phone at 855-925-2801 utilizing meeting code 8719. If you are joining us via phone tonight, please press *2 to leave a message. Additionally, I want to remind everyone that any questions not addressed during tonight's Q&A will receive a response from the Flood Control District following the event. Information from this meeting and a recording of the live stream will be available on the Flood Control District's website and YouTube channel. Joining Marcus tonight for our Q&A session is Project Management Department Manager Juana Cooper. So we'll go ahead and take some of your questions. And one of the questions that we have is, why is this project being performed in batches? Marcus, you want to answer that for us?
Yes. So most contractors that do this type of work, channel repairs, pipe outfall repairs, cannot bid and manage a $60 million project. So we figured the good spot for these types of projects are approximately about $10 million. Because of this, we decided to break them up so that we can have multiple contractors working simultaneously across the project area. More contractors just leaves more crews and more work getting done over a period of time.
Thank you, Marcus. We have another question coming in for you. What are the benefits of removing silt to reduce flood risks?
So as we have different storm events, as the water comes up, it's moving very fast. It picks up soil along the way. And then as the water starts to recede, that it slows down, and that extra silt that's picked up is deposited somewhere else within that channel. So by desilting these channels, it allows us to restore them to their original carrying capacity. So at some point, maybe there were 5 to 6 feet within a channel, but over years and years of storm events and picking up silt from other places, from other locations within the watershed and depositing them in these tributaries, then by removing that, you restore the carrying capacity, thereby increasing or restoring the conveyance, which was originally intended for the design, and thereby reducing flood risk.
Thank you. We have a question coming in from Greg. Greg is asking, does this include Little Cypress Creek Watershed?
So the desilt for these projects do not include anything in Little Cypress Creek Watershed. This would be only the tributaries which are man-made within Cypress Creek and a few locations along the Cypress Creek main stem.
Thank you. A few people are asking if they can get slides on this presentation. We do want to let everyone know that this presentation will be available on our YouTube channel. It will also be available on our website at hcfcd.org/CI-012. That would include this full video and the slides. Another question that we have coming in here, let's see. Another question that a lot of people do always want to jump in and ask is, will this project eliminate flooding altogether?
I can take that one. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. No, this project will not eliminate flooding. Although this project will reduce the risk of flooding in the area, the risk of flooding will remain, and any area in Harris County can flood given enough rain. The Flood Control District recommends that everyone in Harris County and surrounding areas have flood insurance to insure against the possibility of personal and financial loss. So visit www.hcfcd.org/MAAPNEXT to learn about the Flood Control District's MAP Next initiative, which aims to produce Harris County's most comprehensive and complete set of flood hazard maps and information.
Thank you so much for that information. Marcus, can you explain why we're not widening or deepening Cypress Creek itself?
So we had a recent study of the Cypress Creek watershed and found that the main source of flooding within the watershed wasn't the insufficient capacity of the tributaries, but actually the backwater rising from Cypress Creek. So widening and deepening Cypress Creek and other natural channels becomes complicated and expensive because it requires the extensive environmental permitting from the Corps. Flood control, we've typically focused on building stormwater detention instead. There's more information about that on the website. The widening or deepening of tributaries, like widening or deepening of Cypress Creek itself, would also require the additional purchase of right-of-way, and which would include taking homes and businesses, which would be just disruptive to the community. So while this major maintenance project will not widen or deepen tributaries, it will allow them to function more efficiently and carry more stormwater. So, and without the need for a disruption or an excessive property acquisitions, if you will. With that said, of course, we'll continue to evaluate Cypress Creek and tributaries and its tributaries on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you, Marcus. The next question is for Tawana. If we are increasing conveyance, will this flood downstream areas?
No, our flood control district projects are no impact projects, meaning that we cannot do a project in one area that causes flooding in another area. Our engineers must certify that the projects that they design will not cause impacts to the surrounding area.
Thank you. And Tawana, I don't know if you want to take this question as well, but we have Paul asking, saying that his house is next to the project area in batch 1. How can we keep children safe during construction?
Well, I would hope that the children would not be playing inside our right-of-way or, moving around inside our right-of-way. The contractor basically is responsible for the area that they're working in, and they're going to have some safety measures that they implement. But we do ask people to make sure that they stay outside or away from our right-of-way while the contractors are working in the area.
Great reminder, thank you. We have another question coming in from Leander. He says that they live in Memorial Hills and in a Memorial Hills subdivision. Will these improvements on Cypress Creek result in the creek being able to handle 25 inches to 35 inches of rain?
And I'll take that question. And the 25, and you said 25 inches to 35 inches. No, the maximum, so just to give you an idea of how much that 25 inches of rain, and I'm assuming that we're talking about a 24-hour period here. That's, well, more than Harvey level. But right now, Harvey itself, if you looked at it in terms of a 24-hour period, if you will, was about 16 to 18 inches within a 24-hour period. And there's not a channel within, or at least currently within Harris County, that actually handles that much right now.
Thank you. We had a few people joining in late on our phone line. Marcus, can you explain the timeline for this project again, for those that missed it?
Yes, so for batch one, we've already started the construction on that one. That was one of the slides where I showed some of the progress of construction in Spring Oaks neighborhood subdivision. The construction of the other two batches, batch two, we expect to start construction late summer this year. And for batch three, we expect to start in late fall of this year, with both of those projects being completed at the end of 2023.
So much. We're seeing a lot of some questions coming in regards to other projects within the same watershed. We just want to remind everyone that for tonight's session, we will be able to address questions on the major maintenance in the Cypress Creek watershed. However, any other questions in regards to other projects will receive an answer after this event and after the time period closes for these comments. But you will be receiving an answer later from a flood control district representative. Another question coming in: why is the silting of the main channel or stem not happening earlier in the batch process if the backflow issue is the main problem, as just stated?
Can I take that one? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. While working in Cypress Creek and other federally funded natural channels requires extensive environmental permitting from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, because the creek is considered by our federal government to have significant natural value. So that is why we started with man-made and modified channels, because we could get started on them more quickly instead of waiting to have environmental permitting completed on the main stem. Now, we are currently evaluating which channels, including Cypress Creek, will be included in later batches. And there is one small section of Cypress Creek that is included in batch 3.
Thank you so much. We are getting a question about long-term maintenance. Will Cypress Creek have silt and other debris removed annually to preserve this investment?
That is definitely something that the flood control district is actually working on, and part of some of the plans that and discussions that have been going on in Commissioner's Court now. So at this time, that plan to do it on an annual basis isn't there, because what we typically do after storm events, we go out, evaluate the channels to determine which portions of the channel actually received a buildup of silt, and we submit those to FEMA and other agencies to try to get some partnership funding to desilt those areas which were a result of a major event that we have. So to answer the question plainly, that is something that we're looking at, on having a annual or some sort of routine maintenance on some of these natural channels, but there'll be more to come on that later.
I want to remind everyone that there's 3 ways to submit a comment and participate on tonight's meeting. You can submit a comment on this side in the box near the presentation live stream. You can submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at hcfcd.org/CI-012, or you can submit a comment via phone at 855-925-2801, utilizing meeting code 8719. If you're joining us via phone tonight, please press *2 to leave a message. And as a reminder, any questions that are not addressed during tonight's Q&A will receive a response from the Flood Control District following the event, including questions about other projects. Tawana, we have a question coming in for you. When will we know what the other batches beyond the 3% will look like?
As Marcus mentioned earlier, they're going to be anywhere from 6 to 8 batches on this project. And we will be giving you updates and have other meetings in the future. However, in the meantime, the Flood Control District always welcomes inputs on the projects. And you can visit www.hcfcd.org/CI-012 and click submit a comment or a question that you may have about the project. But we will be reaching back out to the public because we have more batches to come. We're just in the process of determining what's going to be in each batch. We'll let you know more when we do.
Great, thank you for that information. The next question is for you, Marcus. We need flood risk reduction in Cypress Creek watershed. Why aren't you widening or deepening these man-made channels instead of just restoring them to their design capacity?
So this is very similar to a question that was asked earlier and something I covered during the presentation. So whenever you widen and deepen a channel, that increases conveyance. That is actually considered an increase in conveyance from an original design or an original intent. And what that does is if we do that, then it requires us to have to acquire additional right-of-way to put in a detention pond, which would mitigate that increase in capacity. By us restoring the capacity to an original design, we can say that the restoring actually recovers the capacity that may have been lost over several years or over several storm events that will provide some benefit to the public. Just widening and deepening is more complicated than just doing it because, again, once you do that, it transfers the risk of flooding downstream. And without detention somewhere to mitigate that, then it just takes the problem from one location to another.
Yeah. Tawana, the next question is for you. Why not do all the repairs all at once? Why in smaller batches?
Okay, well, first of all, the bond program includes $60 million for this project. And most contractors that do this type of work, which is channel repairs and pipe outfall repairs and et cetera, cannot manage a $60 million project. So the sweet spot for a project of this nature is around $10 million. And because of this, we decided to break it up and break the work up so that we can have multiple contractors working simultaneously across the project. Now, if we tried to do it all at one time also, we would have to consider the environmental permitting issues that need to be resolved with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and that could delay it. So we're actually able to get more work accomplished quicker by breaking it up and not doing it all at one time.
Thank you for that explanation. Marcus, the next question is for you. How is this project being funded?
So right now, the project is fully funded via the 2018 bond program. During the meetings that we had prior to the bond election, $60 million was set aside specifically for this effort that we're working on now.
Another question for you. Would widening or deepening a channel require additional land to be purchased?
So in the particular case for these projects, yes, widening and deepening would require additional right-of-way. And that's because we have for a couple of reasons. One being the improvements themselves. As you go deeper with our standard cross sections and the way we design our channel segments and the slopes that we use that we determine handle high velocities better without failure. Once you start to deepen it, the amount of area that you need in order for us to get the full channel width and 30 feet of maintenance berm on either side of the channel becomes significant. So on some of these tributaries, we have encroachments and some of them are right against the edge of our right-of-way. So we pretty much have to purchase people's backyards and in some cases, homes, sheds, or things like that in order to expand the channel. The second component where right-of-way would be required when you decide to widen or deepen the channel is the detention basin. So again, another question that was asked earlier, I mentioned that the detention basin itself would require land to go somewhere and dig a basin and try to mitigate those flows, because we cannot widen and deepen a channel beyond its original intent without the risk of without transferring the risk to someone downstream. And in our case, or in any case, when you do that, you'd have to mitigate those impacts and show with hydraulic and hydrologic analyses that you did not transfer the risk from one area to another.
Thank you, Marcus. Tawana, the next question is for you. In the presentation, in the pictures of batch 1 progress, it looks like there are trails. How can our neighborhood build trails along flood control right of way?
That's a good question. While the flood control district's mission does not include recreation, however, the flood control district supports the multi-use of its property for recreational and other compatible uses, such as trails when appropriate, and works frequently with third-party sponsors who want to finance and maintain those amenities while not obstructing the channel. So in areas where the flood control district does not own the property outright, the trail sponsor must obtain a trail easement from the fee owner of the property. On the other hand, where the flood control district holds the property in fee simple ownership, we will allow a trail to be built there under the following conditions. And those conditions are: 1, a sponsor must agree to construct, operate, and maintain the proposed trail. 2, the sponsor must agree to maintain, which is mow, the rights of way from top of bank to property line on the trail side of the bayou, creek, or channel. And the sponsor must also agree to pick up litter. The third one is that a formal agreement is necessary between the flood control district and the sponsor. And the sponsor could be a city, a utility district, a county precinct, homeowners association, or other legal entity. And the fourth condition is that the trails cannot interfere with the flood control district's mission, and the sponsor will have the duty of repair or replacement of the trails should they become damaged through use, flooding, or flood control district maintenance operations. And the public must be allowed access and use of the trails.
Thank you so much for that information. The next question is also for you, from someone that says her channel has been desilted but is accumulating more silt. How often will you be repeating the desilt?
How often, what was the end of the question?
How often will the flood control district be repeating the desilt?
Okay, Marcus addressed that earlier. Marcus, would you mind restating the answer to that one, where we talked about repeating the desilt process?
Sure. So right now the plans to do these desilts or repairs just depends on the final conclusion of what we come to with our ongoing maintenance program for what we do going forward as a district. One of the things I could say is that during major events, once there's a declaration, a natural disaster declaration declared, then at that point we're allowed to investigate which areas have significant silt accumulations, and then we submit those to FEMA to say, based on this storm event, we've had this much accumulation of silt, and we'd like some sort of funding to repair those, or repair or remove the accumulation of silt to restore it back to the original design. So as I mentioned previously, there's more to come on that, because it is something that we're working on with Commissioner Score.
Thank you, Marcus. The next question is also for you. Are there requirements for developers to work with the flood control district to prevent flooding from their developments?
Yes. So our flood control guidelines, there are several rules that we have in place so that to ensure that any new development does not make a situation worse. That includes sometimes providing detention for the additional increase in conveyance to the channel with a detention basin. It also considers the amount of fill or how high a development builds up within a floodplain. So for every amount of dirt that the development puts within a floodplain, they have to account for that in some detention facility somewhere. And within our watershed management department, they have the charge of reviewing those reports, making sure they're following along the guidelines of flood control in our local floodplain administrator to make sure that any development that goes in is not making the flooding situation worse. It doesn't always make it better, but it doesn't increase or transfer that risk to others.
Yeah. Another question for you. Will this work change the floodplains or floodplain maps?
No, and the reason for that, again, is that this project is simply taking it back to original design. So when the floodplain maps were created, they took snapshots of the channel as they were and made those that's what the mapping is based on. So these desilts, while they will provide some benefit, and how much we hadn't run the numbers or the calculations to determine what the silt was now versus what it looks like going back to the original design. So you will get some benefit, but it won't be so much so that it will somehow reduce the extent of the existing floodplain maps.
And a lot of the questions that we've been getting have been in regards to the work being done in batches. Marcus, would you mind going over the presentation of the portion where you talk about the work that's being done and the progress for each batch?
Sure. So for batch one, we're looking at about 8 miles of channel repairs and what we consider desilting. That's the one that's currently under construction, started in June with a budget of $14 million or a construction cost of $14 million. And batch two is approximately 5.6 miles across, I guess that's about 8 channels or so, with $3.3 million. That one's expected to start construction in late summer of this year with an estimated completion in late 2023. And batch three was approximately 5.8 miles with $10.8 million in construction costs and expected to start in fall of this year with the same completion date of the previous, which is later this year in 2023. And the exhibit here shows the number of channels on the left side of the exhibit or the table, and the total number of miles and the total rock placed. And the rock placed accounts for both our large rocks, which we refer to as riprap, and the smaller granular, what we call granular fill soils that are used for the repairs. And on the further side of this table shows the linear feet of outfalls or storm sewers that we plan on replacing with each batch.
Thank you so much. I want to remind everyone that there are 3 ways to submit a comment and provide your engagement on tonight's session. You can submit a comment on this side in the box near the presentation live stream. You can submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at hcfcd.org/CI-012, or you can submit a comment via phone at 855-925-2801 utilizing meeting code 8719. If you are joining us via phone tonight, please press *2 to leave a message. I want to remind everyone that any questions that we do not address during tonight's session will still receive a response from our team after this event. All right. We have a question coming in for you, Marcus. Who is responsible for creek bed maintenance on a natural channel?
All right, and so what I'm going to assume you mean when you say creek bed, I'm thinking you're talking about things like falling debris that's happened within the channel. Typically, flood control, we will handle those. We do have a program where we go out and do de-snags on some of the natural channels whenever we notice it after a storm event, or if we get a call from a resident that notices that there's debris or something of that nature. Again, trees and things like that that just fall over in the channel and kind of trap grasses and other things like that. Flood control district will come out and do those on majority of the cases. So if the resident that asked that question has noticed there's a fallen tree or some type of debris within the creek bed that's blocking access, then we'll get with our infrastructure team and they will come out and look at it and determine whether or not or how we proceed with the removal of that debris.
Thank you. We have a question coming in about encroachments. Why are encroachments being removed and what harm do they do? And Tawana, you're muted.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay. Encroachments are things that are placed within Harris County Flood Control District's right-of-way that should not be there. And what they do is they're harmful to the maintenance process because they block our access to get in there and maintain our channels. We have to get equipment in. We also have to have room to work to restore the channels. So encroachments that are there block the access. So we cannot allow encroachments that are illegal to be inside the right-of-way.
We have a resident asking, what can I do if I see a fallen tree or another type of problem? The best way to report a fallen tree.
So with that, you could go to the www.hcfcd.org website, and there's a service request where you can go and report that type of issue, and it goes through the system and it's filtered out to the proper division so that they can come out and help with the issue. So it's just pretty much just report the problem and we'll have someone come out and take a look.
Thank you. Tawana, the next question is for you. Why were these channels neglected prior to now?
That's a good question. Maintenance across the county has been deferred in the past because of a previous lack of funding for the maintenance. The 2018 bond program has allowed us to move forward with restoring the channel conveyance across the Cypress Creek watershed.
Thank you. Marcus, a question coming in for you. How much of this project is bond funded and how much is coming from other sources?
So for this particular project and the work that we're talking about in these batches 1, 2, and 3, these are all fully funded by the 2018 bond program. So that's the $60 million that I mentioned during the presentation. That's all coming from the bond. Now, that's not to say there won't be portions that will come in later batches that will be part of some other program or some other allotment of funding from one of the sources that we're showing over here on this exhibit here. But right now, it's all 100% bond funded.
Marcus, could you please go over the timeline for this project?
Sure. So, again, batch 1 began in June. It's already under construction. Batch 2, we expect to start later this year, as well as batch 3, somewhere probably around the summer for batch 2 and fall for batch 3. And both of those projects, we anticipate to finish by late 2023. The future batches that we're working on now, I'd expect us to start design on those maybe early next year, towards the end of this year. And in terms of when the construction would start, it's just going to depend on which tributaries or which portions of Cypress Creek we decide to roll into those packages to kind of hit that number that we mentioned previously, plus or minus 10 million. So more to come on those future batches, but we will keep the public engaged and make sure that they're aware of what's coming.
Thank you. Another question for you. When will we know more about what's in the next series of batches for this project?
And so I expect, and I kind of just mentioned it, but I would expect us to know more about these other batches, probably more closer to the start of January of next year.
Thank you. Tawana, we have this question came in earlier. If we can address it again. People are always interested to know, will this project eliminate flooding altogether?
Although the project will reduce the risk of flooding in the area, the risk of flooding will remain. Any area in Harris County can flood given enough rainfall. And the Flood Control District recommends that everyone in Harris County and surrounding areas purchase flood insurance to insure against the possibility of personal and financial loss. Now, to learn more about the Flood Control District's MAP Next initiative, which aims to produce Harris County's most comprehensive and complete set of flood hazard maps and information, you can visit www.hcfcd.org/MAAPNEXT. Thank you.
Thank you. For everyone wanting to know how they can remain engaged in this and other projects in your watersheds happening across the county, you can always go to our website, visit the Flood Control District. We welcome your input in all your projects. Please visit hcfcd.org/CI-012 and click the Submit a Comment button to ask a question or provide any project input. Additionally, we plan to hold an annual community engagement meeting for this project to update the public on future work and timelines. Also, any questions that have come in regards to other projects outside of this one, you can expect an answer from our team on those questions as well. And with that, I want to encourage everyone to continue to remain engaged and continue asking questions about this project. And you can expect to see the slides of this presentation on our website at hcfcd.org/CI-012. This video presentation will also be available on our website and in our YouTube channel as well. And with that, I would like to share one final reminder that we are continuing to accept comments and feedback through August 11. We also encourage everyone to get flood insurance as flood season in Harris County runs year-round. And thank you all again for joining us this evening and for your engagement with this project. We look forward to continuing to share updates as our work moves forward.